I'll give it a minute or two for people to jump in. Yeah, looks good, looks good. Okay, we are good. Excellent, cool. So my name is, as mentioned, Robbie Kruszynski, and I was a graduate of a boot camp in Portland, and I focused on front end development. And so I walked out of there with CSS and Sass and React, a little bit of Angular, an understanding of JavaScript, things like this. But I'd always had an interest in blockchain technology, and with a little bit of luck and certainly some perseverance in trying to break my way into it, I managed to get a position within Consensus. And Consensus focuses on Ethereum. And Ethereum, without getting too deep into the woods right away, Ethereum is part of blockchain. I wonder if I could get in chat maybe a +1 or show of hands, who has heard of, let's say, blockchain right now? There's blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum. James Nowinski, I see you got a yes, we got a couple yups. So even if you don't know the details of it, you've at least heard this word and you've heard people talking about it, right? So the point of this conversation is going to be talking about what is blockchain, and if you are a developer or a designer or a researcher or whatever the case is, being heavy tech or not heavy tech or an interest in tech, how could you perhaps leverage your current skill set? And beyond that, how could you potentially get paid to do that? Which I think for a lot of juniors or curious people is an interesting place to be. So my presentation is going to be building in a new space, leveraging your current abilities for blockchain technology. So if we are all good, we can kick this off. And there are a couple things that I want to show throughout this beyond this deck, and we'll get to that as we go through this deck. So we will start out with, why are you in your chair right now, right? And I know a number of answers could be, I want a higher paying job, I want job security, I'm really interested in technology, and right now I can't go outside unless you're James Nowinski, who won't stop walking around. I see you, James, on Instagram. What else? Does anyone else have perhaps another reason why you are part of this conversation that wasn't just mentioned, or want to pipe up in terms of why they are working on development? Okay, well, we can keep cruising along if I don't see anything in chat. And at any point, I will preface by saying I do want this to be an open platform and open communication. So I welcome anyone at any point to just jump in, say whatever they want, and we can just talk about it. So I want this to be less formal, more of a conversation. But if people want to observe, I'll just keep kind of running in front. So being a junior developer is difficult, right? Why is it difficult? You have stack requirements, you have competition, you have non-competitive salaries. That's a reality that a lot of people, I think, don't talk about, because there are a plethora of junior developers out there. We talk about the importance of networking and how crucial that is. I know personally a lot of very, very experienced developers who, because they don't focus on the networking, because they don't focus on that social outreach, have had a harder time breaking into the space, opposed to people who are maybe a little more forward in starting communications and prove that they have the ability to learn, and maybe in this moment don't have all of the tech required to just jump in and build a full stack application out head to toe, but showcase that they are teachable and that they are pleasant to work with. I think those last two things, teachability and being pleasant, are more times than not going to land you a job over being hyper social or hyper technical. And that's, again, these are just my opinions, but it's what I've observed. We have the life cycle of a developer, which this, especially now, is really resonating with me. And I've broken it down into 4 components, right? You start learning a new language, and you become very rich with bugs and frustration as the compiler, as the interpreter, as everything gets read on your terminal, and you get mad and you get sad, but you work through them, you understand your mistakes, you fix them, and as you fix them, you think of new things, new ideas to add to your project. You add new complexities, new logic. and you realize to implement that logic or those new features, that might require a different stack, that might require a different library, that might require an injection that you did not anticipate. And so once you realize like, oh, I need a backend, or I need a database, or I need to check out, material UI or whatever, then the cycle starts over. And you start with the documentation, and again, you become rich with bugs, and again and again and again and again. But I think this is something that we undeniably have all signed up for, and it is important to recognize and to own. I think it's a learning experience that's very exciting, even though most of the time it is frustrating. So the key to this is going to be persistence. Any job you take, regardless of your industry, is going to require tech you don't know yet. Networking is absolutely going to be one of your strongest tools, more so, in my opinion, than your tech abilities. And a combination of separating yourself with open source, your stack diversity, and your personality are all going to be huge contributions to what you can leverage later on. Even if you aren't a pro at Ruby, or a pro at setting up a smart contract with Solidity, or making a bot with Python, or building out this like beautiful front end with React. Just showing that you've dabbled, showing that you're curious and you're willing to, on your own, experiment with documentation and tutorials you find online. That curiosity, I think a lot of recruiters and a lot of companies are looking for, again, to focus on that teachability aspect. Because being a junior, all the companies know it's like, hot flash, you're not going to know everything, right? And they know that, and you know that, so there's no secret there. But it's how quickly can you learn something? That's the question that everyone is asking internally. So by showing that you have diverse interests, I think you can kind of, without them asking, showcase like, wow, this person has taken it upon themselves to play around with Express and a number of techs that weren't part of their normal curriculum to separate themselves. And that is, I think, really, really important. So here's an example of a local junior developer posting that I found for Portland, Oregon, right? And I purposely made this a little dense to showcase some of the asks. And we don't have to go over this, but just absorb the wall of text that I just gave you, right? So we've got basic stuff. We have HTML, we have CSS, we have JS, but then you look a little deeper and you can see like they want Docker, they want integrating RESTful APIs, they want Git proficiency, they want major CSM platforms like WordPress, they want to see PHP, especially with WordPress, they want Python, they want AWS, they want everything, right? Right, it's over the top in terms of, in my opinion, what they're asking for. And I didn't reveal the offering salary. I didn't know how okay that would be or not. But I would say the ask that they're offering and what they're willing to pay, I don't think make a lot of sense. So an overview of that posting, just to highlight certain things, I went ahead and I bolded a couple of the texts that they were looking for. So again, HTML, CSS, JS, they want full stack, they want Docker, they want MAMP, they want VPS, they want AWS. There's a lot of things that for a junior position they're asking for. Excellent time management skills, strong organizational skills, superior. To me, this is a mid-range ask, not necessarily a junior. I think juniors need a little more mentorship. Juniors need a little more patience when working with, and this is a big post. And this isn't even their preferred. That's like the minimum. Now their preferred is, we can see here, they want Node, they want Webpack, they want Parcel, they want Gist tools, they want Gulp, they want all of the things. So the point of this is to mostly showcase choosing tech as a career above all else means you've chosen to always learn and explore new materials. You can't learn one language or one thing and stay in that hole forever. Technically, I suppose you could, but you will become obsolete. And I think part of going into software, part of going into development is to keep yourself relevant and to explore your interests. And at least in my opinion, these are the two lanes that people can be umbrellaed under when they go under technology. To only learn one thing, once that goes out or once that drops off, it's going to be pretty difficult to keep up with. And I personally know a lot of developers who've been in the game for 5, 10, 15 years, and they're still looking up docs, and they're still learning new technologies, and they're learning about WASM and WebAssembly and Rust and Viper and like all these things, or Julia made by MIT for machine learning. Like, the technology grows at an exponential rate, and you don't necessarily have to keep up with it, but to keep your ear to the ground is in, I would say, your best interest, and also helps you when it comes to retaining a job. So that is kind of the point I wanted to drop home, and I talk about that here. Any job is going to require restructuring. Oh, someone want to pipe in? No? Okay. Cool. So any job is going to require restructuring. If you have an interest in a stack, you should definitely explore it, and you should always explore your interests. Major transitions when you first start can and will be nerve-wracking. When you go to a coding bootcamp, when you start a new job, when you start dating someone for the first time, when you do anything that is of major importance to you, it is scary, right? But oftentimes those scary things prove to be the most fruitful because they require the biggest change in your life. And I think we are creatures of habit, so breaking out of that habit can be really jarring, but I find tons of validity. And you move across the country or whatever, you're like, oh God, I don't know. But then you come out of it and you're like, this was like the best thing I've ever done for myself. So I always am pro making strategic, large life choices. I think you can absolutely get a lot out of that. So we're going to talk about blockchain. What is blockchain? And we could talk about this on a high level, so we certainly don't have to fall down some jargon hole where I lose everybody. So blockchain is, as you might think, a chain of blocks. Imagine this, right? So we have a list of blocks, and we'll talk about this a little more in depth, but each block contains a hash of the previous block, a timestamp, a transaction data, and that's about it. Each block has a little bit of information in them, and they build on each other, and they are resistant to modification of data. And we're going to talk about this in the next post. So what if someone tries to hack it? And I've got a little GIF simulating it here. So let's take this for example. This is going to be our first block, right? And so this is hash 1Z8F, and its previous hash is 0. It just zeroes out because there is no previous hash. This is the first one. So the second block has the hash and the previous hash, and moving forward, we'll see the same thing over and over. So the thing I wanted to point out, oops, sorry. Unfortunately, this previous hash, this GIF is a little inaccurate because it should, oh no, I'm sorry. So it has this hash right here, right? So these carry over. This information carries to block 2, and then this information carries to block 3. And hash block 3 would carry to block 4. So the idea behind this is, let's say myself and who's on the call that I can pick on? Let's say myself and, is Randy here? Yeah. So myself and Randy decide that we want to make an exchange. I'm going to give Randy $20. And this is decided in block 1. I'm going to give Randy $20. And let's say Emma and James are witness to this. So I say I'm going to give Randy $20 here. In block 2, I give Randy $20. And everyone sees that transaction happen. Like everyone participating in this conversation sees it. So now block 3 happens, and now Randy puts that $20 in her pocket. Now, if she tries to go back and she goes, no, Robbie was supposed to give me $40, or Robbie gave me only $10, tries to manipulate the facts, the people participating in my instance, I said Emma and James, could look at their files and say, no. We have it on our end that it's $20. So what's interesting about the blockchain is when you put something on it, it is verified by everyone participating. So if you go back and you try to manipulate it, everyone who has already verify that information is going to say that's not true. So the consensus is going to say that's false. And so manipulating it, when you have hundreds of thousands or millions of people participating in the conversation, becomes really, really difficult. And without getting into the weeds, we start to talk about the only way to decipher or to break into blockchain is going to be quantum computing. And that's a whole different conversation that we won't fall into. But the point is what's really cool about blockchain is it's open source, so everyone can see all of the information that's being put out. And because it is a conglomeration of a consensus, hacking it based on the populace that is contributing becomes super, super difficult. And at any point, if I lose anyone, or if anyone has questions, please just either pipe up or throw it in chat. I'm keeping my eye on it, but we will move along unless I see otherwise. So a few companies utilizing, exploring blockchain, because you might think, well, okay, this stuff's cool, maybe it's not cool, or I'm on the fence. Who's using it? I would say a lot of big companies are using it. We have Amazon, Intel, Apple, Walmart, Nike, Samsung, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. And I could have made many slides worth of the people going over this. To go off on a short tangent, what's really cool about blockchain technology that could be used in an area that you might not have realized is the physical world. Because you might think, okay, well, like blockchain and Bitcoin, this is all like online stuff. How does this apply real world application? So now we could talk about the idea of fakes, counterfeits. Louis Vuitton actually is exploring blockchain. And so you might think, well, what are they going to get out of it? What does that have to do with anything? The fake or the counterfeit market is a multi-billion-dollar market where people are making fake products of high-end designer goods constantly, and they're selling them for a considerable amount of money. A portion of those people are aware that they're fake and they don't care. They just want to have that brand on them. And the other part are getting gypped because they think that they're buying a real product and they're not. So how do you, and as you know, like the factories get smarter about the stitching and the details and reproducing these things, at a certain point, is it even possible to tell the difference between a real and a counterfeit if the counterfeit materials and execution are brought up to such a level? And so that becomes super, let me check the chat really quick. Okay, that becomes super, super scary for that company because now they might be losing a lot of money. So blockchain is going to give you a hash, just as let me go back, blockchain is going to give you a hash number, just as we talked about here. And this hash number is immutable. So you don't have the ability to change this number. So now if Louis made a bag and they gave it a hash number and they attached it to that physical item, both literally and digitally, if I were to look that number up, I could see that that's been verified. I can see that that's been made by them. Perhaps they include the material details or whatever the case is. Or if, let's say, I bought that bag from Louis and then I wanted to sell it to, let's pick somebody from here. I wanted to sell it to Jack or Jacob, then they would be able to take that number that I have, that hash number, and look it up and verify it. Like, okay, this is verified by Louis Vuitton. This is real, and I don't have to worry about it. So there is a trustless environment that is built into blockchain that makes it really, really interesting because now you can cut out a lot of middle people. We don't need to hire people or talk to people to validify anything. You can just see what I own. You can look up the number yourself and you can trace it back to the origin. And if it checks out, you're good to go. If it doesn't check out, walk away. So that is, I think, a really fun, real use case. And Nike's doing the same. Christian Dior is doing the same. YSL is doing the same. A lot of luxury brands are looking at blockchain to try to stop the counterfeit market. So let's move forward. Another problem that we see in the world is going to be about finance. And we can't talk about blockchain or Bitcoin or Ethereum without talking about money, right? So we've always used somebody. We've used a bank, we've used a credit card company, and we use them because we've cultivated a sense of trust, security, accessibility, right? I can just go on to, I use Chase. right? Hopefully that'll end soon, but right now I use Chase. And so I know I could just go on to chase.com, I can log in, and I can see all the stuff. And that's great. But what happens if there's an injection of a hack? Or what happens if there's a collapse of the economy, as we're kind of seeing now? There are a lot of questions of these like what ifs that we don't really worry about until we are without option facing those. So no one thinks about the nightmare until the nightmare happens, unfortunately. So what's interesting about blockchain is blockchain can deal with that. So there's been an unprecedented amount of digitalization that has occurred in all of our parts. So the previous two items lead blockchain developers to consider alternatives. When you dial a number, there's not an operator on the other line connecting you, just as there was back in the day, where you call an operator, you say, I want to talk to, let's say, Sharon Lee. I want to talk to Sharon Lee. And then that operator puts me on the call with Sharon Lee. So now I could just call Sharon Lee directly. And a good example I can use of blockchain is everyone familiar with Kickstarter? If yes, no, throw something in the chat. Let me just know that I'm talking to myself. Cool, perfect. So Kickstarter is nothing more than a medium. I see a thing that Kickstarter is doing. Let's say that I'm going to pick somebody out of the chat again. I'm going to pick Matt. Matt is selling shoes for $100. And I see them. I'm like, wow, these are great shoes. So I will give $100 to Kickstarter, and I'll trust Kickstarter to give that money to Matt. And I'll trust Kickstarter to hold Matt accountable to take that $100 and recognize it and to give the shoes to Kickstarter to then give to me. So what's happening behind the scenes is Kickstarter is doing very little work other than being the mediator or the mitigation between this transaction. And they're taking a percentage out of Matt's earnings for selling the shoes simply for being this trust source. So now what if Matt decided that I'm going to sell shoes, but I'm going to have a smart contract, something on the blockchain that is publicly recognized. So if I say, hey, I'm selling these shoes for $100, if you give me $100, you get these shoes. And if not, over a 5-day period, if I don't deliver, or whatever the case is, you get your money back. Now we don't need Kickstarter. Now Matt doesn't get a hit out of his potential profit because he's using Kickstarter. Now we don't have to deal with anyone in between. It's just me and Matt, or fill in the person and Matt. So what's really interesting about it is it's really liberating to have these transactions that are peer-to-peer, an A to B conversation where we don't need to hire anyone else. A very good use case of this is going to be buying or selling a house. I don't know how many people on this call have done that. I myself have not, but I've been witness to it. And it involves a lot of people. It involves a lot of money to negotiate, to inspect, to do all of these things. And all of those things require fees. The more people you have invested in this, the more fees you have to pay, and that's less profit, that's less everything that you get. So what if I could have a contract or a form of information that you could trust that was immutable? You could say, Robbie bought the house on this date. Robbie spent this amount on the kitchen. Robbie fixed the foundation, blah, 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 blah. And then it just turned into like, Robbie sold the house. And so you could look at it from the very beginning all the way up until today's date and see everything I've done. And it's all been legally cataloged and it's immutable and everyone's agreed on it. So you don't have to worry of like, did he actually do that? Did this happen? The answer is yes, it did. And it's all true. And now we've both saved a lot of money because we don't have to hire other people to do that research for us. So I think that's very powerful and very applicable for most people. So let's move on. Here's a beautiful, we call it the blockchain angel. It's the blockchain spectrum. So we talk about cryptography, politics, economics, distributed systems. All of these things involve blockchain, even from people who may or may not want to share the fact they're familiar with torrents, Pirate Bay, BitTorrent, all of these things, right? This is peer-to-peer. I have something and I'm sharing it with you. It's over a network. right? So that's pretty much what blockchain is. And you have sovereignty and espionage and communities and research allocation and game theory. All these things could fall under blockchain. And so the scope of it is really incredible because you can apply it in a number of different ways. A great example is, let's say, an election. I can have it so everyone has that hash that we talked about, and you decide that you want to vote for somebody. Once you are, let's say I voted for someone. Once I voted for someone, I can't change that vote. No one can change that vote because I voted and everyone said, okay, Robbie voted for this person. So if someone tries to tamper with that, they go, no, 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 no. All of us collectively say that he's already voted and he's voted for this person, if that's public or not. But we can just say he's already voted. So to manipulate that vote is against what we're about. So that's not going to fly. So now that brings a lot of validity to the idea of voting or of sharing information, because you know no one can tamper with it. So this is kind of a spectrum to showcase really what can happen out of blockchain and how much can't be tampered with if we have buy-in from everybody. So let's talk about Ethereum. What is Ethereum? We've been talking about blockchain. Ethereum is based off of blockchain, and Ethereum is a world computer that, in my opinion, is going to change how we interact, just like the internet did 20 years ago. It's more than just a currency. It's a platform for building decentralized applications. We don't have to get into this too hard, but what we can talk about is the fact that Facebook, Google, a lot of big companies mine our data. They're not free, right? We are what they're using. So every time you are scrolling through something and you pause, when you pause, that is recorded, right? If you pause on cat food or you say cat food enough in front of your phone, even without owning a cat, I guarantee you in under a week, you're gonna see cat food advertisements all over the place. That isn't coincidence, right? We're being mined and that's known, and they don't necessarily try to hide it, but it's more like, well, if you're gonna use our services, this is what it's gonna cost. And the alternative is don't use our services, but then that gets kind of tricky because it comes down to the masses or the consensus have agreed to do this. So it's easier if I just like play along. So what Ethereum does is it essentially gives you the opportunity to own your data. And if you want to sell it, great, that's on you. If you don't want to sell it, also great, that's on you. But it at least gives you the option, which I think is a very important part of this, is it's empowering daily users to have control over their own data. So outside of that, it's also about secure communication. We see authentication, messaging, e-commerce has a secure backbone, payments. We have integrated development when it comes to debugging, development of applications, which we can get into a little bit later, but that's kind of Ethereum in a nutshell. And on the spectrum of blockchain, we have Bitcoin, which is number one as of right now in terms of what it's trading at. And right below that, we have Ethereum. That's the number two. In terms of the overall accessibility and use case, I am obviously a little biased probably toward Ethereum because I work in that space so much, but the opportunities that Ethereum presents for a human level and like pushing forward, is this way different than a VPN? Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Will? It's not.
No, I was just wondering, it sounds like we're trying to protect data, our own data, and that sounds like the same service that a VPN might offer.
Yes. So that is totally true. I guess like the difference between the VPN then and the EVM, which would be the Ethereum virtual machine, which is what everything is recorded on, like that's like the blockchain for Ethereum, would be how that information is recorded. Because from an Ethereum standpoint, it is all public. And then beyond that, I think, I don't know what you'd be able to do with a VPN, but beyond just like hiding your information, how you'd be able to collect that information if you wanted to later do something with that information. If I understand correctly, with a VPN, it's more about privacy and not having accessibility to that information later. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, that's how I understand it. More obscures your data from an outside looker looking in,
Right.
but it also does not save your data for your own purposes later.
Right. So I think that's one of the differences is that, and again, like I'm happy to take this like offline. We could talk async, but Ethereum is going to give you the accessibility to that information later on, whereas a VPN is going to kind of abstract that information. So it's very difficult to trace you. So that's great in terms of privacy, but in like going a step beyond that, doing something with that private information with a VPN, I don't believe you can. With the EVM, if you decided to, excuse me, you could. So we're gonna keep on keeping on. And now here, because I've been hitting you guys with walls of text, here is a beautiful little picture. This is going to be a representation of a smart contract, which we can get into in just a moment. And then here are going to be the blocks. And then these blocks are turning, are mining into coins. And without getting into it, we have proof of work, which is going to be how let me get some in chat. Has anyone heard of a miner, a Bitcoin miner, an Ethereum miner, blockchain miner, any of this popping up for anybody? And if not, that's totally okay. Cool. We have a definitely, yes, excellent, cool. Yes, 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 cool. So what that is those miners are validating blocks. So to validate, these are the people that are contributing to this space. So that earlier analogy of when I was giving, I think I was giving Randy $20 and Emma and James were observing this. We could say, mined that information. So they are verifying that that happened. So if you contribute to the conversation, if you mine that conversation in this very abstract, high-level example, then you will get paid for that because you are contributing to the truth. You are contributing to the trustless environment, and there is a positive out of that. So that's kind of all this is talking about. And a smart contract, to talk a little bit about the tech, revolves around, there are two main languages. There's Solidity and there's Viper. Solidity is going to be a little more JavaScript based, and Viper is definitely going to be more Python based. And fortunately or unfortunately, Solidity is the dominator for the language. Like it absolutely crushes Viper in terms of popularity. And if there's some time, we can discover a little bit of Solidity together. But if you were curious on the back end, what it takes to verify something or to protect information, Solidity is going to be an excellent resource for you to look at. And I am happy to provide some things beyond that. So let's keep going. We've got our blockchain market trends. You might think like, okay, sure, this is cool, this is not cool, but who cares? A lot of people care, I would say. The skills, and this was taken in 2020, the #1 top hard skill is going to be blockchain. Beyond that, we see cloud computing, we see analysis, we see AI, we see UX. These are all, like, I would say the top 5 are revolving around blockchain technology. Obviously, the first one is a little more hard-coded in there, but these are all relative. It's going to be the #1 most in-demand skill. We see crypto jobs soaring. There are a lot of resources. You can go on, I want to say it's cryptojobs.co. If anyone's curious, I'm happy to link it afterward. But there are a lot of platforms you can use to look at jobs in this space. Here's another job posting example. Oof. So we have responsibilities, requirements, bonuses, and benefits. So I've gone ahead and I've highlighted a few of the things already. We see HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, React, TypeScript, Webpack, Babel, right? And then it's like, you have a good eye for UX. You have experience with product management, right? Can I get a show of hands in the chat? Does this, in my opinion, I would say yes, but perhaps not, seem more applicable or more approachable than that first posting I posted just a little bit ago? And I'll give just a moment to, we got one yes, thank you, Randy. Cool, Emma, fantastic, 49, area James, cool. So guess what? Bum, bum, bum. It's a Web3 posting, right? A lot of people think that stepping into Web3, stepping into blockchain is this crazy technology stack that is impossible, but in reality, it's not. And the whole point of this conversation is to showcase that you can leverage a lot. Let me get out of here. You can leverage a lot of what you currently know into this space. And that's what's so great about it. And I would say that I'm living proof of that. I started out as someone going to a boot camp. I learned basics of front-end engineering. I got an internship where I developed my skills more. I applied for an internship. I got it. And then I got contract work. I, by no means, am any kind of special tale other than maybe a little bit of luck. But the point is I was able to leverage my tech stack and my communication abilities to put me in something that was interesting to me. So the way that I often try to portray Web3, as we call it, which is going to be the new version of the internet when we eventually get there. So when I say Web3, I apologize if that's jargon, but that's just like in a world where we're using blockchain more. If you can imagine you're in a desert, almost like a mirage, and you look in the distance, there's an impossibly tall wall in front of you. The closer, if you have the courage and the curiosity to walk towards that, the closer you get towards it, you realize that wall gets smaller and smaller. And by the time you get to it, it's just, you take a step over it and you realize that it's not much of a wall at all. Of course, there's a learning stack beyond it. There's that can't go without saying, but what job doesn't have a stack that you need to absorb going into it? So I don't necessarily mean to paint blockchain or shill, if you guys are familiar with the term shilling, like selling. I'm not trying to give you some like snake elixir that this is like the answer to everything. But especially as a new developer, a curious developer, a junior developer, whatever the case is, if you're here right now, if you're curious in this technology, you absolutely have something to contribute toward this space, be it designer, research, developer, whatever the case is, it's bleeding edge. And what's really exciting about that is it's very new. And while, yes, it is grossly volatile, there's a lot of space and a lot of holes that we need to fill to bring people in. So as junior developers walk into a space where they're applying to jobs, and trust me, I have, and I can show it to you, I've got 60, 70, 80 cover letters that I had written and resumes tailored to all kinds of places. And of, let's say, like those 70 that I sent out, maybe only 15 of them I heard back from. And of those 15, let's say 7 of them or 6 of them were like, thanks, but no thanks. And then the others were like short conversations. So the market is already very saturated with developers in the internet as we currently know it. So if you have an interest in, let's call it tomorrow's technology, there is a lot more space to grow in there. Now, of course, again, not to shill, but if you have no interest in this, then I absolutely respect that. But if you do, I want to empower you to let you know that there's so much you already have to contribute. And that's super, super exciting. So you might think, okay, I'm in, but there's so many docs and references. Where do I even start? And I fell down this hole myself. And when I fell down this hole, it was a nightmare because there's so many docs everywhere about you should start here, you should do this, you should do that, blah, 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 blah. And it's just no good. So we made something called 1 million developers. And you could go on 1milliondevs.com, or there's a QR code if for some reason you want to scan it with your phone. But I would say probably just check out 1milliondevs.com. And this is an aggregator of aggregators, if you will. So what we've done is we've pulled all of the resources available for Web3, and we've compiled them into a singular place where if someone's like, I'm interested in blockchain technology, I don't know where to go. We say, go to 1 million developers. And the idea is, to get 1 million developers onboarded, right? And so the idea of developers is a little abstract. It's really like 1 million members, like community members that want to participate and engage in this space. But it is to offer you a place to rest your eyes and to go through tutorials, to go through, to look at job postings, to do anything that you might think being curious in this space. This website, as I'll refer to a couple more times, will be that hub for you to live. And my team and we spent a little bit of time building it out, and any feedback we can get on it would be more than helpful and welcomed. So check it out if you got some time, but it could be a very good resource. So what is it? As I said, it was necessary to create a hub. It's to help guide new and experienced Web3 devs to tools and events related to their progression. An idea is we have an event meetup in there too. So if you're curious about blockchain and maybe you don't want to build anything, but you just want to attend meetups like this, then this is going to be an excellent source to show you meetups like this are happening. If you have an interest or you had an interest, this is where you start. This is the resource to address kind of all of your needs. Something beyond that, and everything I'm about to share moving forward is all based off of 1 million developers. So you don't have to remember all of these things. You could just know, like, if that was interesting to you, you can find it on 1mildevs.com. Consensus Academy is an academy that was built to onboard developers regardless of your experience into this space. So there are full-blown out online boot camps, there are Udemy courses, and there are a lot of resources and documentation that you can check out yourself to look at learning Solidity, to look at use cases when it comes to blockchain, any of these things. I went through the boot camp myself to teach myself Solidity. It was really, really incredible. And the documentation and the guidance that they take you through is fantastic. And if anyone is interested in this space, please reach out to me and I would be happy to like share a couple promo codes, whatever it is that you might be interested in. If like the tuition is getting in the way of pursuing this technology, we definitely want to like break that wall down. So we don't want there to be any hindrance to you exploring your curiosity. So this is a little bit about Consensus Academy, and the guys and girls over there are doing truly some fantastic work. Beyond that, you might think, I'm a junior developer. I need money. I don't care about this stuff. I have to pay rent. I need to put food in my fridge. I need these things. So a really interesting thing to talk about is open source. Open source is excellent for your resume. Open source is excellent to talk about at job interviews. The kicker with open source is there's no gain out of it other than perhaps like a conversation piece and contributing to a project on GitHub or GitLab or whatever you're using. So there's a company called Gitcoin, and again, this is on the 1 million developer. What's cool about Gitcoin is they have bounties. Let's say me, Robbie, I have a project I'm working on, and I'm gonna do the front end, but I don't have time to do the back end. So I can say, I need the back end built out, and I don't have time for it, and let's pick on somebody from the chat that I haven't already. Let's say Mark. Let's say Mark sees my post and he goes, oh, I could do that backend. And then he reaches out to me on GitHub and he goes, hey, I can do that. And I say, great, I will pay you X amount of money to do it. And then Mark goes ahead and does it. I approve it, and then he gets paid for it. So not only am I getting my work completed, so I have less on my load, not only is Mark contributing to open source, but now Mark is getting paid to do open source and to explore this technology. And like that, it's just like everybody wins in this format. And it goes way beyond tech. I don't want to paint the picture. It's like, oh, you need to be a master of development to contribute. I personally have been paid bounties for doing tech, yes, but also for doing design. Or right now they're doing a bounty for like if you write some articles on Wikipedia, if you do any of these things. And you might think like, okay, well, I don't want Bitcoin, I don't want Ether, I just want money, like US money I can give to my landlord. Any money you receive out of this, you can convert to USD or whatever the currency you want is, and then put that in your bank account. So at the end of the day, you will get paid. It's just how you want to change that currency up, that's up to you. But this is an excellent resource, again, on the 1 million dev website too, so you don't have to remember this, that you can leverage to make some money and contribute to open source, which I think is just the best idea ever. Games are a great way to learn. Perhaps let's get some of the chat. Has anyone ever experienced Flexbox Froggy. That is so hard to say. Or Grid Garden. Can I get some yeses or nos out of this? No. Yes. Okay. No. We got C both. Perfect. Okay. So these are little games that have been made in a really smart way to share information with you. So they teach you how to program in a gamified format. And gamification, when it comes to educating, is, I would say, if it's done well, fantastic. Because in order to educate someone, I think you first need to entertain them. And so using a gaming platform to entertain and educate simultaneously is fantastic. So needless to say, Flexbox and Grid are really fun tools you can use when it comes to CSS and learning how to style a website. If you're unfamiliar with these things, you know, like where does the picture go? How big is the picture? What about the text? All these things revolve around CSS. So we have Crypto Zombies. And what Crypto Zombies is, and if there's time after this, I can share it. Crypto Zombies is a fun game that teaches you how to write Solidity. And Solidity is used to write smart contracts. And smart contracts are used just as, let's take my earlier example of replacing Kickstarter with something like a smart contract, is what is used to set the boundaries of how people interact in a particular way. And this contract protects both the person who made it and the person interacting with it. So Crypto Zombies is a really, really excellent way. And again, this is on that 1 Million Dev website, an excellent way to showcase step-by-step how you can build out a contract. And perhaps we can explore it if there's a little time. And again, don't worry about the docs, they all live here. Because I know I went through a lot. And if I'm cruising through this or anything, please anyone type up in the chat or just say something. But there's some information covered. So many techs have matured and have established their ecosystems. When you enter a job as a Web 2 developer, especially as a junior, you are dealing with not only a plethora of junior developers who are coming out of college, who are coming out of boot camps, who are coming out of self-taught systems. Everyone's gone through the same YouTube tutorials. Everyone's done the Udemy things. Everyone has the same backlog and the same repos of pizza and boop and all these things. How do you separate yourself? Right? And I'm not necessarily saying like, oh, learn blockchain and everything's solved. But if you, again, express your interest in a variety of stacks, I think that brings a lot of validity to you as a developer. In my personal opinion, being a successful developer is being a curious individual. Is being someone who is always like kind of poking around. You don't have to master anything unless it really grabs you or your job requires it. But just like poking around and being like, that looks pretty cool. Can I take a little bit of that and put it with like a little bit of this? That to me is somebody who will go very far in development because they are always asking themselves questions of like what they can do and how they can push that forward. So Ether and blockchain are very new technologies, and we need a lot of new people with new ideas. These technologies don't happen very often. I would honestly equate the state of blockchain right now to, and if you, maybe a number of you are old enough to remember this, when blockchain first kicked off, I'm sorry, not blockchain, the internet first kicked off, the idea of paying for something online was a no-go. Right? It was like you had email, you had AIM, you had AOL, you had these things, but like I'm gonna put my credit card online and buy something and it's gonna be shipped to me. People would be like, no way. I would never trust to put my credit card online. I would never trust that. No. But like look at today. Look at how that's evolved. So I would say like where blockchain is right now, it's probably comparable to like where dial-up was back then, where it was like admittingly kind of clunky because it's new. And the only way we can get past the clunkiness is by onboarding new people, by having more people contribute to this space and to say, that's a bad idea. That's bad user design. This is bad user flow. That code is sloppy. This doesn't make sense. Asking these questions, challenging current ideas and making them better is the best way that we can get out of this clunky stage and get into a smoother flow that people can adopt without even realizing it. So in conclusion, with a plethora of developers, particularly juniors, standing out can be very difficult. I want to expose developers to a tech yet untapped by the masses to provide opportunity to explore, help grow, and develop themselves. Everyone in this room has the ability to contribute to this space if they decide to. And I really wholeheartedly want you to feel empowered by that. So that is the end of the presentation, but it would mean an incredible amount of deal to me if, and I'm gonna get out of this and I'm gonna grab this and put it in the chat. If you guys took the time to fill this out, did it? Perfect. That is a form I made about this presentation. But beyond that, without getting too much into the jargon, something I wanted to share is this. There is a tool that you could use called MetaMask. And MetaMask is how you can interact with the Web3 space right here. And if you just Google metamask.com or like anything around MetaMask, you're going to be brought to here. This is metamask.io. This is the actual link. And I'll actually put the link in the chat. And so what you can do is you can download this, and very quickly you will get a little wallet, and you'll see the little fox up here. And so this fox is going to give you an address. And just as I mentioned with like the Louis thing and having an address that belongs to you and only you, it will give you a public address to share. So if you download MetaMask and you get this address, in my form, I ask you for your address. So the kicker, I just copied this, right? Let's go ahead and open up a new tab and we'll paste it. This is my address. This is a pain in the ass to share with somebody. And again, this comes down to like that clunkiness I was talking about. Like, oh yeah, you can send me some ether at 0x1 capital CB4C4E, etc. right? That's nonsense. So what has been made an advancement are something called subdomains. So now what you can do is, instead of me giving this to you and hoping that I didn't copy paste it wrong, I can say, send me money at robbiek.eth. And that's it. And then that automatically redirects anything you send to this address, which abstracts this address to a way more digestible format. So if you are to fill that form out that I just shared, and you share, if you don't want to do it now, that's okay. Just give me your email and your name and we'll stay in touch. And if you get MetaMask later, I can, so to obtain an ENS subdomain, as I just said, mine is robbiek.eth, you normally have to spend a little money on it. It's like $15 or $20 a year. It's nothing, but it's something. But if you fill this out, we are able to provide you with, as a thank you, an ENS subdomain for free. And we can show you, if you're interested, how to use it. So like, let's say if, Emma, I'm going to pick on you again. If Emma wanted to set one up, then it would just be like, let's say emma.eth, and that's it. So if I wanted to send Emma some money, then I would just type that in, opposed to this impossibly long string. I could just do that, and that helps make it a little more human and makes it a little more applicable. So that is my talk. If there are any questions, I'm happy to filter through them now. But the one thing I wanted to touch on, and I'll do a share screen with it too, is moving forward, I really want to focus on the idea of having more interactive spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and share this. So this is called hubs.mozilla.com. And this is a free technology. And can I get a quick chat cosign that we can see all of this? Yes, we can see me in this space with this wonderful little purple tree. Yeah, perfect. Great, great, great. So the idea of this is anyone can join this space. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and let's get weird. I'm going to put it in here. Oh, nope, that is my address. There we go. So I want to say, if anyone goes to that link, they're going to be able to join this space. But what's interesting about this space is you can change the rooms, you can change the environments. There we go, we got some people joining, fantastic. So go ahead and join that room. But now we're gonna get super meta here. Let's see if my computer is gonna probably break. Let's get strange here. So if I go here and I share it, and I do this, so now, if you can see on my screen, I'm sharing, oh, excellent, everybody's joining, that's so nice. So go ahead, and there we go, we got somebody who joined in. And so go, just join through, just like click and join until you're in the room. And then once you're in the room, you use WASD to move around. Now I'm sharing my screen, as you can see, sharing my screen sort of infinitely. And you can do a lot of really interesting things like this. Like I can, let's see here we go, right? So now I'm sharing myself live in this space. Oh, there we go, we got some people joining. So now here I am. And now everyone can see it. So moving forward, I want to personally move away from Zoom. I want to move away from Google, and I want to explore this space more because I think it's really interactive. And if actually you on your screen, if you're in this room, this is so funny to see everybody. I want to take a screening of this. This is so goofy. If you click on that red icon up top, you can make a little object, and you can bring that object into the room. Like I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make this fish tank, right? And then you can make it small, big, whatever. Here we go, I'm just gonna plop that fish tank right there. So exactly, and someone can pick it up and they can move it around or they can throw it away, you know, whatever. So it's a really interesting space. Exactly, you can take me and throw it. Go ahead, someone whip me off, whip me off. But you can take this platform and you can make a really interactive or dynamic experience that I think can, especially in this time, make up for the fact that we can't hang out in real life, which for sure is a problem because you have text, which is so cold, and then you have Zoom, which is like a little better, but not much, or Google Hangouts or Skype or whatever. And I think this takes it a click above. Oh, here we go. Somebody has me going around. That's great. But this is something that I want to do when it comes to hosting virtual meetups. And I'm going to start doing that for blockchain, and I'm going to start doing that for like hackathons and for meetups. An example is, let's see if I can do this. Ooh, my computer is getting mad. Let's share. Not me. We don't need me. Application window, Python. Here we go, cool. So here's an example. Here's a Python bot I am writing in Discord. So wouldn't it be interesting if you didn't have the ability to actually see, let me get rid of that. There we go, cool. If you didn't have the ability to hang out with people, but if we could do something like this, where it's like, hey guys, I'm having an issue with line 20 or something. Does anyone have anything to say about that? So now we could do these like quasi code reviews in VR, which I think is super, super interesting. And you kind of like, check this out. Let me change rooms, not to like turn this into all about this, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the scene because you can build your own room in this space, which I think is super interesting. Or now we're in a totally different scene. And there are hundreds of different scenes that you can be part of, which is, I think, really, really interesting. But if anyone, now I'm going on a tangent now. If anyone had any questions or I'm happy to field anything. If anyone wanted to talk about anything, let me know. Uncircle that line. Yeah, exactly. No, bot command works, 27 through 30. Yeah, that's good. But I think in real time it should work where if I scroll up, yeah, exactly. See, I can scroll up, I can scroll down, I can say, hello, everyone. And we can see it on line 10. It is, oh, I spelled everyone wrong. we can see that it is exactly, thank you, whoever made that, it's coming up. So this, I think, is a fun, creative way to share information, which I think, especially now with the climate, is more important than ever. So that is my presentation. Again, it would mean the world to me if you filled that form out. If you were interested in an ENS subdomain and wanted to explore this, I'm happy to share my information. If you fill that out, I'll ping you, I'll send you an email. We can keep this going. I don't know how we're doing on time. I'm guessing we're not terribly far, but if I have more time, there's obviously more things I can share. So let me know, everybody.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. Any questions anyone has? I can also repeat them in the chat if you don't have a mic. Can you share a link to the ETH game you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so that would be Crypto Zombies, and I definitely can, and that will. Oh, to quickly kind of go over that, let's see if we have like a moment. Here's an example. Here is Crypto Zombies. If I'm still screen sharing, which I think I am, you go ahead and you pick however you want your zombie to look, and doesn't matter too much. But then the documentation is going to be on the left-hand side where it talks about setting up a contract, and you have to like declare which version you're using, right? So we can go ahead and we put it to the test, and it wants us to use versions between 5 and 6. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy pasta over here. So we're going to go ahead and say we're using Solidity. We're going between 5 and 6. We're going to click next, and we got through. So then the next thing is going to say is like declare an unsigned integer named DNA digits, or I'm sorry, yeah, DNA digits, and set it to 16. So if we were to do something like an unsigned, or actually it'd be really cool if let's see if I could do this. I should share this here in VR. Can I? I think so. I can. Excellent. Cool. So now perhaps we can see this. This is the future, guys. Get ready. All right. So now I can go ahead and, oh God, my computer. I can declare an unsigned integer. And what is it asking for? To name it DNA digits, and it is particular about casing, and have it equal to 16. We'll check the answer, and we can see something's wrong, right? And so if we look at like what could be wrong with that, it's probably the fact that I don't have this guy. So it's a really fun way to walk through it, and I will say it is like pretty strict, and it's because that. So if we try again, there we go, because I had a misspelling on that. I threw an N in there. So yeah, that's going to be Crypto Zombies, and I'll go ahead and I'll throw that in the chat, and that's going to be here. And all of this information can be found on the 1 Million Developer website, where it walks you through what are bounties, what are grants, what are applications you can use to learn more, really everything, Discord channels. If anyone is particularly curious about kind of stepping into this space, my job as a developer relation person within Consensus is to help onboard you and to help nurture that curiosity. So I would be more than happy to share all of the resources I have to make that onboarding experience less cumbersome for you. Get out of there. Get out of here.
One of the questions in chat was, will this presentation be available online somewhere? And we are recording this presentation, so probably later today we can upload it to YouTube and send out some links for you guys.
Very cool. Thank you for that. Out of curiosity, was anyone familiar with hubs prior to this conversation? Because I discovered it not too long ago. I discovered it about maybe a month ago. And the first time I saw it, it totally blew my mind. And again, I'm only showing a couple spaces. But beyond this, what is really cool is you can check out Spokes. Spokes Hub Mozilla. So it would be like Spokes Hub Mozilla, something like this. And it's almost like an After Effects or an Illustrator where you can design your own space from the ground up. It's a totally open platform, and you can make it look as realistic or as fantastical as you want, and then invite people to it and set conditionals of their mic is muted, or they can do this, or they can't do that. And I just think that this is a particularly powerful platform that people can utilize right now to help with, the quarantine and the isolation that most all of us are facing right now. Oh, wow. Everyone's doing so much stuff in here. It's great to see. We got like objects and pictures and all kinds of stuff. So I'm very excited that people are messing around with this. It's easy to do. It's easy to lose some time in here.
So just a quick question about blockchain, I guess. How did you get into that workspace?
Great question. So I got into blockchain because I had always been particularly curious about a trustless environment. I was kind of exposed to blockchain via Bitcoin in like 2015, 2016, something like that. One of my good friends, Matt, is Matt here? Matt Topping. He put me onto it, and it started to kind of spin my wheels. So I'd always been interested in it, and I know that he had a little mining rig set up, and I just thought it was like really fascinating, this idea of like non-federally regulated currency. It seemed like so abstract to me, but the premise of it was really inspiring, where it's like, well, even if like everything collapses, as long as we all have consensus on this retaining a particular value, it should, beyond what the government decides. And so I had always kind of kept up with it, but felt perhaps like a number of devs like, oh, I don't have the chops to work in that space because it's too heavy going, or like the tech is too much. So once I discovered that I actually could leverage a lot, I applied for an internship via Consensus. And I guess like what maybe like Nike is to shoes, Consensus is to Ethereum. They're heavily tied together, and they are a large representation of the effort. And I managed to kind of squeeze my way into an internship, and that was quite a process in itself, but was very, very much worth it. And I would like to kind of showcase myself as an example of, if you are curious about this, you can absolutely land at least, a foot in the door and see how you feel about it once you start to explore it a little more.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Will governments wanting backdoor into crypto, how they respond to this? Probably poorly, I would say. But I would be in the camp of they have to adjust to our desires, and we shouldn't have to adjust to their desires. So I don't care if you want a backdoor. If that's a backdoor that I don't know about, or as like the community doesn't know about, then yeah, exactly. Then that doesn't feel correct. So this is more than anything also to like put people on check, because everything is recorded, because everything is part of a block and it is publicly known. If we are agreeing on something, then everyone has that consensus on it, and we can trace all of that information back. So it obscures a lot of secrets that I think people have grown, or like privacy issues that people have grown really frustrated with as of recently. Do I see Bitcoin and other currencies going up to 20K? That is a complicated answer. And I will preface that by saying all opinions I share on the projections of crypto prices are 100% my own. And I will say that crypto in general hit a bubble that was undeniable because it received attention from the media in a way that I think was good for its popularity, but ultimately was not great because it made it seem hyper volatile, which it is. But I think in the scheme of things painted it a little incorrectly. If blockchain technology is to be adopted by the masses, then I can see more people wanting to participate in it, which would drive the price up. Now, this is not going to get into the jargon of ETH 2.0, into proof of stake versus proof of work, into sharding, which is a whole different conversation. I would like to think, and I'll say this very loosely, that we will see a positive movement in blockchain, and that will be shown via its cost. But I don't know if it'll hit 20K. Maybe that's the biggest it'll ever be. Maybe it'll hit way more than that, maybe less. It is very, very difficult to say. But the only advice I ever give to investing is only invest what you are willing to lose across the board, be it crypto or stock. That's just do that. It might be difficult for me to say because I'm pretty red-pilled. So naturally, I'm a believer in Ethereum, and I have invested in Ethereum. So obviously, I would like to see it go up. But I'm more invested in the technology than the monetary price of the token itself, because I am a firm believer that this technology can positively change the way that we operate. Cool. Glad you agree. Who knows? Obviously, everyone wants moon, right? Go to the moon. We all want it. Wow. Guys, look at this. X-Wing looking ginormous over here. Whoever did this, good work. It could be a little bigger, though. Well, are there any, before I totally get distracted with VR, do we have any kind of questions revolving around the presentation or anything beyond that that I could screen right now? Otherwise, if you wanted to simmer on it and talk about it async later, please let me know. But now I guess would be the time to have my attention immediately. All right, well, not to cut this short, but if everyone, and I'll probably be in this room for a little bit if anyone wanted to talk. Oh, I should mute myself here, actually. There we go. But if nobody has any questions, I know that we have work and things to study. I suppose I'm okay with wrapping this segment up. If everyone is good with that? Question mark? Cool.
Sounds good, man. It's all you. Yep. Feel free to wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to be part of the conversation. I really appreciate it. I hope that you got something out of this, even if you're not interested in the blockchain space, which I totally respect. If you have a better understanding as to what it is, or maybe why you don't appreciate, or maybe now you do appreciate it, that is fantastic. So yeah, great to hear. Thank you, Jennifer. So yeah, if anyone wants to talk offline outside of this, here is, we can do, this is my email. That is my email, and I welcome anyone to ping me on that, and we can continue this conversation. But if no other questions are around, then I will say thank you and good day to everyone involved in this.